This is Summit County Construction and Demolition Waste Diversion Workshop. It's been a long time coming, so thanks for being here. Thanks for Summit County. In this workshop, you're going to learn how to apply effective construction and demolition management strategies to current and future project sites and learn why diversion of your projects and materials benefits your sites, the clients, and our community. So this is not a linear presentation. However, you are going to walk away with a bunch of knowledge of C&D waste diversion policies and programs throughout Colorado, disposal diversion challenges, some of you experience these at your job sites, best practices, learning about construction management planning, understanding the value of setting up efficient project site resources, procedures, and stakeholder roles and communication. So I'm going to pick on a hauler over here, right? They're a stakeholder in the C&D disposal process. General contractors, the scrap. So I want to say thank you to Summit County government. They are the ones that have put this all together. A big thanks to Roy over here, C&D specialist, for bringing this together, Aaron and Bill. Shout out to the Summit County Builders Association for sharing it with all of the builders and being a great partner the past couple of years and trying to help with C&D diversion. And then shout out to High Country Conservation Center. I think all of you guys might be familiar with them. They have done quite a bit with C&D. They're a partner as well. So, who am I? Why am I up here? My name's Kat Slaughter. I was a Summit County resident for 13 years. I have been in Kremling for 1 month now, so I'm still kind of by. I moved here originally about 14 winters ago, to teach environmental ethics at Colorado Mountain College. So I have a background in environmental ethics and ethics, philosophy of technology. And one season, 10 years ago, I thought it would be awesome to be a professor and drive a recycle and compost truck at the same time. So doing that, teach environmental ethics, I drove the 5-compartment side-load truck at Keystone, and it was pretty awesome and eye-opening for me. I've always had a passion for waste diversion. From there, I went to BGV and I ran their sustainability department. We did a lot of remodels, and when I was there, we were doing Grand Colorado. So I was in the midst of a bunch of renovations as well as new construction at large square footage sites. And then I went to go work for a hauler in Summit County. I did that for a year, and 6.5 years ago, I founded VERTsites, specifically for construction and demolition waste diversion. It was an industry that I knew had some challenges, and it was one that I was passionate about. So some things that we do, we were recently in Colorado NPR, Unbuilding the Building, talking about deconstruction. Over here is we worked with the Baymont, Marriott in the front of Frisco now to do some recycling diversion. We worked with the city of Steamboat Springs. We've done demolition with town of Breckenridge, Summit County government. So we do a lot of construction and demolition waste across different areas. Financial analysts, compliance, material characterization, technical support, materials management plans and planning, and collecting and optimization. So that's who I am. That's what we do. Let's get into this. What is waste? So this is typically what your landfills look like, right? It's just a big heap of garbage. But waste is generally understood as any material that is discarded, intended to be discarded, or is no longer useful for its original purpose and requires disposal, treatment, or management. So this is a broad definition, but it includes 4 main material streams: MSW, municipal solid waste, everyday items discarded by the public, right? So this is compost, this is packaging, yard waste, things like that. C&D material streams, hazardous waste, substances posing substantial or potential threats to public health or the environment, special waste, e-waste, tires. You see all of this at your job sites, depending on what you're doing at your job site. C&D debris, as defined by the Solid Waste Association of North America, is solid waste produced during the construction, demolition, deconstruction, renovation, or additions of buildings, roads, bridges, and other man-made structures. It can also include land clearing debris and disaster debris as well. So this means avalanche debris, right? This also means wildfire debris for us specifically. You're not going to have much of that down in Denver, so it just kind of varies where your regions are. So here's fun trivia. Why was trash picked up every 7 days? Anybody have a good guess? No? Nobody wants to take a chance? No? That guy. 7-day stages for the fly. Sometimes our trash gets picked up more, but that is the original reason why our trash is picked up every 7 days. So what is waste diversion? Waste diversion actively minimizes solid waste generation and solid waste materials sent to landfills by employing source reduction, resource recovery, reuse, composting, and other material recovery systems. So it's not just recycling, it's a bunch of other variations. How many general contractors are in here? Residential general contractors. Renovations? Right, so do you try to repurpose them, reuse them before you send them to the landfill? Yeah, so we try to do waste diversion, not just like recycling things, but like donations as well. So waste diversion is kind of all-encompassing. Why do we do waste diversion? So 4 reasons from the EPA. We conserve valuable landfill space, and I will introduce this back table. There is a slide for them, but briefly, this is our Summit County Resource Allocation Park crew. Aaron is the solid waste director, so give me a few slides, I'll bring them in. Thanks, Aaron. It reduces greenhouse gas generation. So in 2023, the waste reduction model estimated Colorado prevented almost 2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide from being generated. It reduces energy consumption, and it typically creates stronger economic impacts than just regular disposal, meaning it does create green jobs. So for us, the 4 stages in the materials management process, we're going to really focus on the first 3. Generating the material at the job site, transporting the material to the landfill processor user of recycled materials, processing, incinerating, disposing of the material at a recycling facility, and then in the case of recycling, using the recycled materials. Do we have any questions so far? No? All right. So before I continue, I actually wanted to get an idea. How many general contractors? Cool. And then waste haulers. Awesome. Government officials. Awesome. Who else? Who else? Anyone just here for fun? Trade partner, Aaron. What? Cool, I did not know that. All right. So, exploring the stages. Material generation. These are your typical materials at a construction site, your top 10, right? So, pallets, why do you guys get pallets? Deliveries, right? Cardboard, why do you get cardboard? Packaging, deliveries, packaging. Brick, right? Scrap metal, mostly probably in HVAC at new construction sites, right? Asphalt, just your typical landfill stuff, your plastic packaging film, asphalt, dirt, scrap metal, lumber, things like that. Those are kind of your top materials that you might see. Is anything missing? General contractors, are we missing any kind of materials for a new construction? We feel good? All right. Demolition. You might get cardboard and packaging. It might already be on the site though, right? It's not going to be generated unless if you're bringing something in. But demolition, you're typically going to have, right, your landfill. You have this awesome pointer, because I couldn't find the laser pointer. We have our landfill, right? You're going to have maybe some brick masonry, maybe scrap metal, maybe different kinds of scrap metal. Cement, asphalt, lumber, treated lumber, things like that. And then for demolition, deconstruction, or essentially selective demolition is what deconstruction is. Deconstruction is demolition, it's just selective. It's unbuilding a building, essentially. And when you're doing that, it sounds like renovations, we might have that. You come across all sorts of materials. It might depend on what you're doing. It depends on if the whole building is coming down, right? So you could have everything on the bottom. You could have just everything depending on what you're trying to do with the job site. So let's play a little game really quick. What dumpster do you think that is? New construction, renovation, remodel, demolition, new construction? Why do you think new construction? Huh? Yes. Usually if there's a lot of drywall at new construction, which is usually clean material, that is a telltale sign it is a new construction site. If you have dirty drywall, it's either demolition, maybe a renovation. What about this one? Demolition, renovation, new construction? Renovation? Actually, this was demolition turned into new construction. What about this one? That one? New construction from this same site, just about 6 weeks taken apart. Demolition ended, and then it turned into new construction, right? And then the one on the right is just a different kind of angle. What about this one? Huh? It's hard to see. Well, this is a lot of packaging. It's probably new construction. Up top, new construction. This one, right, there's a toilet, there's mattresses, there's a bunch of things in there. Demo, yes, definitely a demo. We recycled the mattresses that could have been recycled, the clean ones. The scrap went out of one of those. It's all right. Your materials look different depending on what you're actually doing at the site. So here is a recent building, you know, looking at it. There's a lot of stuff that you can do and that you can't do, right? This furniture, you can try and get rid of it. It's really hard. Nobody wants it. It's very old. You know, I dealt with this at BGV a long time ago. Like, this is very old 90s stuff. It's hard to get rid of. So some things are actually just trash, right? If we had salvaging places, maybe the blinds, right? The ski lockers, yeah, you could salvage those. You could also scrap metal recycle those. Carpet, so this is just kind of what you might see in a commercial building, right? You have concrete ceilings, cubicles. What do you do with all this stuff? Some other angles. So just some sites of generation, right? This is what you deal with in demo. It's overwhelming, right, sometimes. Also, hazardous waste generation, right? So e-waste, you know, there's not e-waste police in Colorado, but in the state of Colorado, it's illegal to throw away e-waste. Ballast can't go in the landfill. So in demo, renovations, maybe even new construction, you're gonna have hazardous waste. One of the best things you can do is actually just kind of set up just a section, wherever, an area for collection. Do we have questions on material generation? No? All right. So getting into trucks. Most of everyone at a construction site, you guys are familiar with these trucks, even though it's dumpsters that are pictured. These are your roll-offs. They usually have 10 to 40 yard dumpsters. This is a front load truck. It's usually 2 to 8 yard dumpsters. Over here, you have a rear load up top, and then this is a side load dumpster. Your roll-offs are your typical construction ones. However, you might have front load dumpsters and see a front load truck at your site. All of these trucks are very different from each other, and that actually matters depending on the space at your job site, depending on the weather, depending on how many people are at your site. So real quickly, residential, if you have trash or recycle pickup at your home, this is the truck you're gonna see. You'll probably see most of this at commercial businesses. I think most of us are familiar with this at job sites though. All right, so getting into some other ways, right? How many of you self-haul your materials to the scrap? Any self-haulers, right? What do you self-haul it in? Truck, trailer? Both? So we don't just have commercial haulers, we have self-haulers as well, just different variations. Dump truck, 60-yard side loads, different ways for trucks, right? Getting into material disposal. So just disposal containers, right? So we talked about, so these are our final destination containers essentially, right? So these are 96, 32, 64-gallon totes. And when I mean final destination, maybe you have a kitchen garbage can, right? That's a collection container in your kitchen. You take that out to a disposal container for final service with the truck. So these are just residential. You can see these at job sites. Sometimes these make sense at your job sites to use depending on what you're trying to do. We get into our front load containers, 2 to 8 yards. And again, depending on your materials, it might make sense to use one of these if you're going to try to divert some things. We do have some plastic ones in Summit County. Just because there's bears, a lot of haulers might not kind of be using these for landfill purposes. It could be used for maybe some recycle purposes, but these are your front load dumpsters. You can be used for trash, but we recently used one for just paper and cardboard recycling, right? A dumpster is a dumpster, it doesn't make it trash or recycling. So here it is, right? So when we were assessing some things, we're like, we can't do a lot, but we can recover a lot of paper and cardboard. And so we used a front load, right? Because a roll-off, it was unnecessary. It was going to cost too much money. We didn't need 20 yards. It was about 16 to 18 yards, and it was just 2 trips. So we saved the roll-off space and didn't have to trash it. For your, and you're more than welcome to take pictures of this, anyone. So if you're curious, the size of the roll-offs, these are your 10 to roll. These are the sizes of your roll-offs. So they usually come 10 to 40 yards. Most contractors appreciate the 30 to 40 yards, but we'll take a 20 if that's all a hauler might have. This matters because, again, it depends on the materials you're trying to manage. You don't always need a 30 or 40, especially if you're trying to do waste diversion. So this is at the scrap. This kind of gives you an idea of what it's like to be there, what your drivers might go through as it tips. We're not going to watch this whole video, but just to give you an idea what materials look like when they get finally dumped. So just collection containers at your job site, right? So we talked about disposal containers, collection containers. What are you collecting items in and around your site? A lot of you guys have these 55-gallon buckets. They're great, they're durable, they last forever. You might have something on wheels. Maybe all you have is just a pole and a bag, right? A lot of these 5-gallon buckets. These pop-up containers are really great depending on what you're trying to capture. So I have used these containers at job sites. I've had the same ones for 3 years. These are brand new. They look like they're flimsy, but they're actually pretty durable. And again, depending on what you're trying to do, these might be really great collection containers. So I will talk a little bit more about those later, but just give an idea, you don't just have to use the brute containers. There's a lot of different options when you're trying to do some waste diversion. Questions on trucks and disposal containers and collection containers. I have 120 slides, so I'm sorry if it seems as if I'm going fast. Yes, Erin. This is where planning comes ahead, right? Because Summit County, we all know the busy season is right now, right? And this is when everybody wants a dumpster, multiple dumpsters, multiple containers. I don't even know if your haulers have containers right now. Some might be out and you're like on a wait list reusing things, right? So we do run into some issues if you're trying to do some waste diversion, but there's no equipment available. In my experience, if you plan a little, like in advance, and you get, I need a 20 for this, I need an 8-yard for this is what I'm doing for this, your haulers will have those dumpsters reserved to the side. Typically, what happened though is the last-minute phone calls, is the last-minute planning. We all want to get our dumpster service tomorrow, right? But if you call right now, you're probably not going to get a service until Monday. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but most haulers have their day planned 1 to 2 days in advance for some things. So, but they also have the equipment necessary. It's just, you have to plan for some things, and you have to know your materials, and we're going to get into that in a little bit later. But great question. Other questions? This is where the scrap comes in. Welcome to your landfill, a beautiful picture taken from the website. I would like to introduce Aaron Byrne, the Solid Waste Director of Summit County Resource Allocation Park, Bill Schenk, a Recycling Manager, and Roy, I'm gonna butcher your name. I'm gonna let you say it, please. After you eat, sorry. Horrible timing. Cool, thanks. I don't know if Bill, Aaron, if you want to share anything, but this is our team, guys. If you were wondering who's behind the scrap, this is it. There's other people, obviously, but so cool. Well, thank you, guys. So how many of you have been to the scrap? Quite a few. There's some that have not been. Okay, all right. Familiar with that map, right? You enter, the gatehouse is over there, come up here, here's our landfill, and there's a bunch of other areas that you can do some waste diversion. You can take a QR code, it's gonna take you to the website of this page. Some of this might need to be updated for some pricing, but this is the most recent pricing. So QR code is gonna take you right there if you're wondering, what does it cost, what does a scrap take, right? So this is just the landfill, right? This is, again, if you're not familiar with it, this is our landfill. Here's it in action. If you're wondering, if you've never seen it in action, we're not gonna watch it all, but it's pretty cool. They got some cool equipment. But you can see like all the C&D debris, right? You can see some of it is recoverable, right? This is maybe some of your materials, I don't know. That's the largest bow mag in North America, right? Yeah, it's awesome. So material streams, I will call on the scrap if anything is wrong, but this is kind of what we can do in Summit County when it comes like, what can I do at my job site? So C&D trash and landfill, that has recently increased to 85 a ton. I believe it's going to increase next year, correct? That's correct. To what? $150. Did you hear that? 150 a ton, 2026. That is a big, significant difference. It went from, was it 79 before to 85? 72. Okay, 72 to 85. That's still kind of a jump, right? That's still like, But we're going from that to 150. That is significant. This is where we can come in and try and plan for some things. So what can you do? Your scrap metal and appliances, that is free at the scrap. You can either do scrap metal in a dumpster at your job site, a 2 to 8 yard dumpster, or you could do a roll off, or you can take it to the scrap for free. Cardboard, you can either take it to the scrap or you could take it to the county drop sites. Asphalt, concrete, pallet, raw lumber, wood slash, wood stumps. These are some of the things you can currently do, and I'll show you Picken County pricing as well. If you're wondering, that seems high, whatever, I'm going to show you Picken County. And I know it's Aspen, but they are very comparable with what we can do, as in they're publicly run as well. So loose tonnage commercial compact, this is kind of what we did at a job site, right? So even though we separated just paper products, there is no paper stream, right? There's no hauler that has a paper stream. There's no economic benefit to just having a paper-only route. The scrap's not even doing a paper-only bale, right? But that's what we had at the actual job site. It was mostly 90% paper, so we just collected paper and cardboard and things like that. A hauler came in with a front-load truck, dumped it in a commercial recycle vehicle. We had an empty dumpster on site. So that's the cool thing about these front-load dumpsters. If you need a quick dump, you can probably get one really, really quick. If you have a roll-off and if you have a dump and return, right, your dumpster goes away, who knows when it comes back. You might have a swap. If your hauler is really cool, you might have 2 drivers that just do that, and that's awesome if you get that. But if you do like cardboard recycling in a front yard dumpster, you can either have a hauler take it away, or you can have them come in with a front load truck. Bill, am I wrong on pricing? No. Oh, okay, I was like just reading. But you can do single stream, and if you do that at a job site, most of your materials are probably going to be aluminum beverage containers, maybe plastic bottles, right? Cardboard, paper, and some other plastic. You're not really going to generate maybe some other household things that commercial businesses might generate. Again, you are more than welcome to take pictures. This is directly taken from the SWAT website. Just give you an idea of some different piles. So pallet recycling at the scrap. Next to it is concrete, just different angle. So cardboard recycling from a new construction site. We did 3 of these roll-offs. It was about 4,000 pounds, I believe. It was nothing but clean cardboard. It was free to dispose. Still had to pay a trucking fee, right? Still got to pay that delivery fee. But the disposal fee was free, right? This is nothing but clean cardboard from a new construction site. So those are just some ideas of your material streams at the scrap. I'm trying to give you a visual tour since we're not there. From there, right, our final things. Your driver of your roll-off is going to get one of these tickets from the scrap. They're either going to give it to an office person, they're going to handle it themselves, whoever your hauler is. It's going to turn into an invoice, right? This is one of them. I don't know what the other haulers look like. And you're going to see the difference, right? So you have a roll-off container run. I don't need to show the pricing. What matters is the disposal fee. So the hauler just charges what the scrap charges. That's why I'm fine showing this price. They're not making any money on what they're disposing. So the cardboard's free. You can see how trash is not. So just to give an idea, if you do separate some things. So imagine if you had those 3 roll-offs of cardboard and you threw in other things, you're going to get charged. It's going to be charged as trash, and I don't know what that would actually be. But 3 roll-offs of cardboard could be significant for your job site, depending on your other materials that would be trash. So, what's the difference of these images? They're both fine. They're both great, actually. But, I mean, is there a key difference?
One's compacted and one's
Yes. There you go. So if you're at a new construction site, you probably have some cool equipment that smashes some things down. That's awesome. If not, you should break down your boxes because you are losing valuable space in a dumpster. Break it down. And if you can, get a gable top. Huh? What do you mean? Oh yeah, that's actually a trash dumpster. Yeah. Sort the contamination. Yeah, I was trying. So this is a trash dumpster. This is a cardboard. The goal was to actually show how these are not broken down, but we could pretend it's recycled. Good eye. So what's new at the scrap? There's something new and exciting. It's a grinder, right? The big pallet pile we all saw. This is what this equipment is for. This is what it does, and I will let the scrap actually talk about it. So this has been in the works for 1.5 years, 2 years maybe, Aaron, right? So it takes pallets, it takes slash, it takes raw dimensional lumber, which there's a lot of that, right? And it grinds it into, take it over. So for this program, it is raw dimensional lumber only, clean, not treated. Let's explore this pile a little bit, right? My general contractors probably know the answer. Is this raw dimensional lumber? Is this what we need at the scrap, right? Is this, so we need GCs. In order to do this, we need clean material, right? And so this is not the wood pile, this is actually just trash. We need raw dimensional lumber. Treated, I mean, I think most of this honestly could be trash. But this is to give you an idea. I know it can be challenging at job sites to do some things, but it's challenging at the scrap to recover things if this is kind of what they keep getting. So give them clean materials. Like it is cheaper to do raw dimensional lumber. It is cheaper to separate some things. You have to plan for it though. And again, we're gonna get into that.
So it can't be scrap lumber that's got nails in it?
It can now.
Oh, it can.
Yeah, yeah, because the grinder takes it out.
Okay.
We have that magnet.
So dimensional lumber with nails in it.
Yeah, so new construction site cutoffs, throw it in, right? That's totally fine. So this is an example of, please don't send this materials to a recycling pile. Send it to the landfill, just a little bit above there. This is just in a dumpster. This is a combination, right? So raw dimensional lumber or no? No, right, trash. Raw dimensional lumber? Yes. Cool, awesome. We can throw that in the program. So if you're gonna do this, just try to be mindful of it and work with your trades, work with your staff, especially if you think you're gonna have a lot. New construction sites, especially multifamily, can produce a lot. I had one that had 90,000 pounds. That's significant compared to recycling versus landfilling it. Here's an example of some other job sites, cleans things, right? So raw dimensional lumber, I don't need to get too much into it. So, right, here's clean stuff. I know there is OSB right there, but my scrap guys, is this a clean dumpster for your standards? If there's maybe 1 or 2 sheets of plywood like that.
Yeah, we're going to say
We want it clean. We want it clean, absolutely. This also shows you it is possible to have clean streams at your job sites and to separate things from the trash. I think this is the last one. So just regular, right? So this is just a combination of some things. You have some cardboard pallet, like the pallet pile from the landfill is probably like 25 feet to the east of it, I think. I don't know. It's not that far is what I'm getting at, right? So it could have gone over there. You have some cardboard, right? Just some things to keep in mind from your own job sites if you're going to produce some of these. And this is where your different container sizes come into play. This is where estimating your materials also come into play. Yeah, great question. Thanks for bringing it up. Space is an issue, and it's not just that, right? In Summit County, we have snow problems, right? You lose 30% of your job site just right then and there. I'm going to talk about some space challenges. That is one of the biggest issues that we do have, not just here in Summit County, but most just construction sites in general. So if you don't mind, can we hold off? Cool, because hopefully I'm going to answer it in like 20 minutes or so and get to that slide. So Colorado communities with C&D policies and programs. Summit County currently doesn't have any, but Summit County is not alone at looking at this stream, right? So more than 35% of landfill materials in Colorado is C&D debris. It's what you guys produce. Who has what in place? So who has C&D policies and programs in place? Fort Collins was the OG. They set something in place 2012. They didn't do anything with it. They just passed some words. That was it. They're working on it now, though, okay? So they set kind of some standard. Other communities followed, but unfortunately, they just didn't follow through. City of Boulder, 2020, Netherland, 2021, City and County of Denver, 2023, Lakewood, 2023, Mountains, Pickens County, 2021, unincorporated only though. City of Aspen was actually a couple of months ago. So this is long before Summit County, and I just want to point out, if you guys are wondering, my business came before any of these communities were talking about it. So I was interested in doing waste diversion before the communities. I just want to do a shout out. Who's chatting about it? Steamboat, Eagle, Glenwood, Town of Vale, Summit County. It's just chats. That's all it is, right? That's only what they're doing. There's nothing in place. The left column is what has things in place. So I'm not going to go into all of these. Most of them kind of piggyback off of each other. So Lakewood, there's certain things with new construction. Again, you're more than welcome to take pictures of this if you want to know what's going on. Most of them require a construction materials management plan, which essentially could be just a one-page like this. But you normally have to divert the materials that are available to divert, track all disposal, things like that, and put it in a nice little report. Typically, these policies are tied to your permit by getting a permit for new construction or demolition, or tied to certificate of occupancy. So in order to get your certificate of occupancy, you might have to hand over a materials management report or a waste diversion report. Pickens County, they have an interesting one. So one, they use green halo systems to track everything. But for new construction, pre-construction, demolition, you have to do a compliance deposit, meaning you estimate what you're gonna generate, whatever that's based off of. It's $1,000 per estimated ton. You hand that over, so if you think it's gonna be, I don't know, 40,000 tons, you can do the math and you give that over. In order to get that deposit back, you have to do some waste diversion. They have 10 different streams though. They do have some different outlets to where it is way more available to do some things over at Pickens County. Aspen pretty much just copied Pickens County. So if you're wondering what Aspen passed, it's exactly what this looks like. Speaking of Pickens County, I want to give you an idea. Again, they are a good neighbor of ours when it comes to the scrap as well as what they do at the landfill. So loose tonnage construction demo is 110 a ton. Unsorted construction debris, 252 a ton. That is a lot, right? So scrap is going to go to 150 next year, correct? Imagine 250 a ton. But they also have all these streams. Screenable soil, they have asphalt, 15 a ton, rock cover, 15 a ton, concrete, 45 a ton. I think that might be what Summit County is. I could be wrong. Dirty concrete, they'd accept that. So these are all the different options contractors can do for waste diversion. And they typically have to achieve either a percentage or just divert certain materials. Branches, food waste scraps. Here's a bunch of stuff from the demo stuff, right? Mattresses, spring box tires. If you're curious, you can go to landfillrules.com just to see what Pickens County does, you know, compared to Summit County. Boulder, they focus mostly on demolition. They don't really do new construction as far as requirements, meaning like diversion percentages, but you have to readily divert the things that you can do at new construction sites. Down in the Front Range, concrete, asphalt, cardboard, dimensional lumber, things like that. But for their demolition, they do have a lot of great outlets for some things. So they do have to do minimum 3 material streams and 75% waste diversion. 75% seems like a lot, but when we're talking about demolition, right, what is probably one of your biggest, heaviest material stream in demo? Huh?
Drywall?
In demo?
Sure.
Concrete.
Concrete, yeah, of course.
Yeah, drywall is absolutely heavy. That's why it'd be awesome if we could divert it from new construction sites. So this is mostly demolition in Boulder. Denver, they have the waste no more. You have to compost, you have to do certain things down in Denver. So this ordinance requires all construction and demolition projects to separate and recycle at a minimum readily recyclable concrete, asphalt, clean wood, scrap metal, and corrugated cardboard. We can also do that in Summit County now too, right? But these are ordinances. So that's what some communities have in place. Again, Summit County is not alone. Why is Summit County talking about it? we did a waste diversion study. When I say we, Summit County did, I wasn't part of it. 2018 general waste composition study at the scrap. 30% of landfill materials in Summit County is C&D debris. Colorado is 35%. Another stream that Summit County had was organics. That was also 30%. And Summit County has been working really hard to do organics. So now we're moving to C&D stream. So this is a really big challenge, right? What are they doing about it? They created a 5-year plan. You can scan this if you want to go to the report and see what it's all about. But this is the 5-year plan timeline. 2023, we're on track with some things. So track and report tonnages, that's still in the works. Pilot, lumber chipping pilot waste program, we have done that. Develop contract, strong future grant program. I will talk about that in a couple of minutes. General deconstruction policies, we have talked about the wood chip program. So again, if you're curious what this county is looking at, more than welcome to go there. What policies are in place for construction? None, absolutely zero. Again, there's just chats. There are no C&D policies in place, but this is what's in place. A designated disposal site ordinance for unincorporated county, some towns, meaning materials generated within the county, go to the scrap. Pay as you throw, universal recycling ordinance. These are the only ordinance we have in place. If I am wrong, scrap and HC3, please correct me. We're good? Okay. Thank you. There we go. So, but construction and demolition does not apply except for DDS, but it does not apply for, you know, we have to recycle or things like that. So I don't want anyone in here to think there's something in place. Strong future, right? So we have programs in place of what you can divert. We don't have policies. Strong Future is an amazing program. You guys, we want to work towards Summit County's community goal of 40% diversion. Summit County government created the Strong Future grant program. So over $300,000 is available. The big goal is for divert construction and demolition waste from the landfill. This grant actually just closed. It's gonna be available for next year. Contractors can apply for this. And I encourage you all, if you're curious, to reach out to Christy in the back. She is our grant person. If you're curious, please take a picture. Her email is right there. But funding ideas, like what can I do with this kind of funding? Funding for hauling, right? Again, recycling is a business. It is not cheap to try to do deconstruction. It comes in with more labor, right? So funding for hauling, disposing things, maybe donating materials. Maybe you have a lot of things that need to go to the front range and you're like, I want gas money, I need this. These are some funding ideas to do some waste diversion. Signage and content, maybe you need that. Funding for trainings. But the goal is to prevent or reduce waste, increase reuse of materials, increase recycling, composting, creating measurable diversion of materials from the landfill, divert C&D waste from the landfill, and create innovative programs. So get creative with some things. There is some funding out there to do some stuff. So I'm gonna encourage all the contractors to really start considering that for next year's grant cycle. There is a mini, a medium, and a large grant cycle, I believe, or is there 2 or 3? 2. There's 2. There's like a medium size and a mini grant size with certain money that would be available. So it kind of depends on your project, but please keep that in mind. If you're saying this costs too much money, there's opportunities out there to try to get this in the works for you guys. There we go. There's our Christie slide. All right, man, we have plowed through about 80 slides so far. I know. Questions, comments? Do we want to take a break or anything, or just keep plowing through? Cool. Take a sip of coffee, hang on. So getting into challenges and opportunities, hopefully we're going to talk about some of the space issues we brought up. Space, regulations, and contamination. These are not all of the challenges. These are some of the top challenges, and these are the ones that we're going to kind of go over. But these are certainly not all of the challenges that we have at C&D job sites. Space. Look how tight this is, right? And this is summer. Could you imagine this in the winter, right? This is Steamboat. They have the same issues. They're another mountain town. They're a different elevation, but they just have the exact same kind of problems we do in Summit County when it comes to space and snow and things like that, right? There's really only, so they got lucky, right? We have a dumpster there. They're actually just gonna do a dump and swap. So they had enough space to actually do that. This is Breckenridge, I believe Highlands. Yeah, Tiger Run. What's the neighborhood by Tiger Run? What neighborhood? The Tiger Run, Highlands. There we go. It is the Highlands. This is Highlands. They have an HOA. Guess what? That HOA doesn't want your dumpster or your portable toilet on the street, right? There we get into space issues already. And you can only have one dumpster. That really poses a problem if you're trying to do waste diversion. This might be all you can actually do, right? Based off of the HOA or even town regulations. So you have space for only one dumpster? Yeah, it makes sense. It's a trash dumpster, and that is out of your control unless if you can kind of talk to the HOA or the town, or if you could kind of figure that out. I mean, the regulate really can't do much about that if it says you're only allowed one dumpster or one toilet, right? So whenever you have to go in and talk to the HOAs. So the DoubleTree, when they were going through one, guess what? Town of Breckenridge has the same thing. Like you can't have a dumpster on whatever road that is the DoubleTree is on. Like it couldn't be there. I don't know the road, forgot. So, I mean, that's a Town of Breckenridge regulation. That's not an HOA, that's Town of Breckenridge. So that's like going against their own thing of wanting to do some waste diversion. But this was a remodel plus addition, okay? So we have, right, plywood, you got some windows. So there is a lot of space, right, to kind of throw some things. We're lucky it's also during the summer too. There's space to see. So this actually got donated. But, you know, all the other things that might have been generated, cardboard packaging, no, it went in the dumpster. That was our only choice out of our control, essentially. So you're only allowed one dumpster, no dumpsters or equipment on the road. There's snow, material storage, and parking, right? You have equipment and you have materials. That matters also besides doing waste diversion, right? Because your roll-off, you have a delivery fee for your roll-off. You have a hauling fee, right? And then even if you get a 2 to 8 yard dumpster, you're still going to have a delivery fee for that. And the disposal fee, depending on the contents, like, right, if it's a cardboard front load delivery, it should be free. It should be. I'm not a hauler though. But this is where estimation comes into place. And this is where Strong Future can actually help out. Because when you kind of figure out the planning process, you apply it to other job sites. So getting started is the hard part, but keeping up with it, right? That's why I'm like, take advantage of Strong Future. Please take advantage of Strong Future. Because it does cost more. Summit County knows it costs more. That's why the funding is actually available. They're trying to help increase this. So this is over in Keystone, right? Only allowed one dumpster. This contractor specifically likes to use 8 yard dumpster. He does not use roll-offs. He likes dumpsters for whatever reason. But again, only one dumpster allowed. No dumpsters or equipment on the road, snow, parking, and illegal dumping. This is a prime dumpster to throw your own garbage in, right? If you have something big at your house, like illegal dumping happens. Again, some more space challenges. Can't have a dumpster on the street. This is Highlands. Guess what? They need all this. It's a long driveway, thank God, right? Because there's a bunch of materials in this driveway to do this home remodel. But you can't have dumpster on the driveway. You can't have a toilet. You can't have a portable toilet on the driveway or on the roadway. So again, the challenges that pose for waste diversion, right? It's cost of things, it's regulation of things if you can't do some things, but maybe you could have 2 of these trailers, right? This is where you have to get creative and know your materials, essentially. This is in Dallas, right? Again, they actually had 2 toters in here. This is a neighborhood development. They had 2 toters in here for materials, and they built these around each house. So they got toters from haulers, and I don't know what the contents, recycling, and one was trash, essentially. And it was kind of spaced out. So some opportunities. Know your parking areas. They're probably going to change when winter comes, right? Know your snow storage areas. Be aware of your trades on site. Just like Jim mentioned, you're in different phases at different times. You're going to have framers on site. You're going to have electricians on site. You might have 10 to 12 different trades on site, essentially. That could be 80 people. That could be maybe 60 cars. That's a large job site right there, you know? Be wary of that. Learn HOA and county and city road regulations. Sometimes things are just out of your control. Like if you can only have one dumpster, that's it, right? Inquire about different types and size containers. Call your haulers. Let them know what you're generating. Let them know it's a new construction site. Let them know it's a demolition site. Let them know that you think you might have a lot of scrap metal. Work with them to where I promise you that 2 to 8 yard dumpster is cheaper than getting a roll-off sent there. I don't know how much cheaper, but this is where you have to do the estimation or work with someone who can do that. Label and designate. This is probably one of the biggest things you can do if you're gonna do some waste diversion. And then know your deliveries and vendor schedules. You know, like, I mean, you might have a semi show at your job site. That could get in the way of the dumpster. And what if your driver shows up to service it, right? So you know these things to try to do waste diversion. It's, okay, contamination. Illegal dumping, that is what it is. So, right, you can have a fence, you can have cameras. I don't think you've really seen cameras out here, but illegal dumping happens and it really sucks, but it does happen. A lot of the contamination though happens from your own team, happens from your own trade partners. It could be your dumpster location, it could be your vendors, and maybe progress, okay? A good example of what I mean by progress, doing a job site, we wanted to recycle porcelain toilets, we can do that. However, the trash dumpster was unfortunately blocked. The driver couldn't get to it. We were gonna halt progress. We couldn't get the trash serviced until 3 days later. That 40-yard dumpster that had maybe 10 yards of porcelain toilet turned into a trash dumpster. Unfortunate, yes. However, didn't halt the progress of things, and that really needed to happen. Like, can you really justify waiting 3 days for a trash dumpster to show just for trash? That's hard for me to justify, but that's just what happens. Sometimes that happens. That's why it's important to know your material hauler schedule, your vendor schedule, and things like that. So, good example, right? This is in Frisco, open top dumpster, new construction site. That shouldn't be there. That was not generated at the construction site, but it's in there. Let's say that could have been a cardboard dumpster. I'm guessing that would have been sent to the landfill. It's probably hard to get that out. As we saw, this thing is like, the walls are 7 or 8 feet tall, right? This cardboard dumpster, if it would have been cardboard, probably would have turned into a trash dumpster. And that's awful, but that's probably what would have happened. And if not, scrap might have, and correct me if I'm wrong, scrap might have said, take that to the landfill because that's on top. This is just unfortunate what happens. This is why fences exist. This is why those cameras exist, essentially. So some of the opportunities for contamination: education, hauler collaboration, and planning. So this is that new construction site. What's really cool, worked with a hauler, they have multiple color dumpsters. Cool, right? So obviously the yellow one, I mean, you could tell this is probably Summit Roll-Off if you're familiar with Summit Roll-Off. They have yellow dumpsters. But we use the blue one for dimensional lumber, all right? So yellow for trash, there's no sign. This sign probably took 10 minutes to make, essentially. But one of the biggest things, if you're trying to do waste diversion at a job site, you have to have signage. Don't assume your trades or anybody knows what goes in a dumpster, because most of us see a dumpster, we assume trash. I have seen it happen where it's a recycling dumpster and someone they just throw trash in there because a dumpster is a dumpster to most people. So one way you can do it, if you can, get different color dumpsters and get some signage. You can share this with some of your team. So whenever we just want to do office paper, right? If we're doing a single stream sort of thing, you could do cardboard, office paper, aluminum cans, bottles, things like that. Hand that out to your trade staff, things like that. So this site, we didn't do signage. Kind of took a chance on that, but it would have benefited from signage. So this is, again, nothing but cardboard, paper, and that's all this dumpster was for. It was just recycling. But we did have signage if it was available. It's actually a closed site. The contractor felt pretty good. They didn't want or need the signage. So this is an example of, it would have cost a lot more money if you had a roll-off on site versus getting that commercial compact truck, because that commercial compact truck is already in Breckenridge doing single stream recycling on a day. They just come in, stab and grab, and they don't have to go to the scrap with that material. I don't know how much it would cost to do that, but that's kind of an example of where a 20-yard roll-off for that material versus a dumpster, because does that make sense, Jim? You might have the wrong size container if it's going to take 3 months to fill up a roll-off for cardboard, you know? So this is, again, that estimation. But yeah, no, that is a good point. Do we have, right? I mean, this comes into the staff. Do our haulers have enough staff to actually do some more dumpsters? I don't want to speak on behalf of the haulers. I can definitely say, driving a truck myself, like, yeah, there's a scheduling. They would put things on schedule. I'm not saying you're going to get all 3 dumpster service on the same day. You might, but it just depends on like how quickly things get generated. And I mean, I bet you every hauler would be like, oh shoot, I need to hire somebody else because I'm getting too much business, you know? Like that would probably be a good problem. But yeah, I think our haulers do have the capacity to do that. Just, I can't guarantee like when or things like that. So if you're wondering about that, I wouldn't be afraid to try to do this if you think it's not gonna get serviced. And if you do think so, work with your hauler, ask them. So getting into signage, right? I know this is broken. That's probably what, a 5-minute fix, general contractors? It's easy to fix. It's still a good sign though. So, GCs, this labeling containers work at your job site. If you're just trying to do anything, like, would this work at a construction site? Do you think so?
Not for long.
Not for long. What is what? What goes where, right? Okay, so this says recyclables, that's cool. What goes in there, right? Because I live in Summit County, and this is down at, I think that's DIA, right? Again, signage matters. If this doesn't make sense to you right now, this will not make sense at your job sites. So some of your opportunities, make it industry specific. So demolition or construction. Remember those materials we saw in the beginning? Are you a new construction or are you at a demolition site? Have images of what should go in there. Is it multifamily or multi-building, you know? Is it Summit County or Routt County? Because what we do in Summit County is different than Routt County, is different than Eagle County, different than Picken County, as you saw from Picken County. So you might build in different areas, and I promise you it is different with what you can do, and this is where planning helps across different boards, even towns. Efficiency versus aesthetics. You can also work with me, but you don't have to. So, some opportunities, right? Again, aesthetics, we don't need it. Would this work at a job site compared to what you guys saw? It's just cardboard. You have it in English, you have it in Spanish. Guess what? Reused, repurposed sign from snow sculptures 2 or 3 years ago. This is coroplast, it's cheap material. I have a lot right here if you would like to play with some of it. Some of them look like this. Some of them are back. Some of them are amazing with the grommets, okay? Again, don't have to make it aesthetically pleasing. We have just some signs like this. Just, and if you want, I'm gonna make these available at the end to take. But CFL bulbs, treated, untreated wood, English and in Spanish, what you see on that sign. Cardboard, just regular trash. Ballast, you have ballast and demo, and depending on the size of the building, you can have a lot of ballast, right? Magnets, heavy duty magnets. Those are helpful for these. So get creative with your signs. If you are using roll-offs, the bigger, the better, honestly. It doesn't have to be what you just saw. Maybe all you have is like plywood, that's cool, and a Sharpie, awesome. English and Spanish, you don't need pictures. So this is a Town of Breck demo. We had 3 different dumpsters on site. Where's my this thing? This is our scrap metal dumpster. We just utilized these with magnets. It worked beautifully. It was nothing but clean scrap metal. Problem, right? It is next to a fence. This fence is next to the walkway. You can tell there's a dumpster on the other side of the fence from people walking along the Blue River. Yeah, I saw people throw things in. It happened. The site tried. There was a fence, right? In the back is a trailer with some material diverted, and this is your trash container closest to the job site. So these are just some signage opportunities. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be labeled appropriately. So it just kind of depends. For this, it made more sense to have it farther away because we were getting materials from the building inside the dumpster, and we didn't want contractors to actually throw trash in the roll-off, because someone throwing in a coffee cup versus a trade partner or a staff member throwing in a bag of trash, that's where it could be different, you know. I think a coffee cup and the scrap metal thing is not that big of a deal compared to like bag of trash or things. So, but it does make sense to know where your space is, to be aware of that, right? So if you are, what's your material you're mostly working with in a demo, it's typically trash at first. But if you're doing deconstruction, you're going to be dealing with recyclables and like home goods at first. So you're probably not going to have a trash dumpster on site. You might have a recycle dumpster on site at first. Again, so placement, right? So this is a great sign for roll-offs. You don't want it in front of here. Why? Can you tell me why you don't want it in front of that hook? Can't pick it up. Are you guys going to get out and move that sign? Yes, because you're nice. That's awesome. Not every driver does that. They might look at it and be like, later, it's in the way. I'm blocked, right? So if you have these signs, put them on the side. Put them anywhere but in front. Let your hauler get to it. They don't want to get out of the roll-off truck. They want to be able to just come in, service it beautifully, and drive off. But Aaron, as you can see, you have lumber and trash dumpsters next to each other. So the yellow dumpster, there's no labeling. That's just assumed it was trash. And then we had this, there's one kind of like on the other side of just scrap lumber as well. They were throwing it from the windows.
Yeah, I mostly just talk about the psychology of illegal dumping.
Oh.
You're in a place that's been according to how a passerby might take advantage.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to deal with what you got, you know? Yeah, but that's how most people see a dumpster. They throw it away. Even at a gas station, you just see like a dumpster and it's not labeled appropriately. There's usually two at a gas station. One's recycled, but if it's not labeled, someone's just going to throw something in. Especially if the gate is open or if there's just access to it. Right, so we saw some of these images before, not labeled. This was understood to be recycling, but since it wasn't labeled, both these turned into trash. We got labels on these. They were able to turn this into recycling. It's outside a job site container. Job site, not container, portable trailer. There we go. That held up. I don't know how. But, you know, just some opportunities to do some things like that. Different language if you can. So getting into these pop-ups. So Steamboat has an ordinance for commercial haulers. They're seeing if they can do this for general contractors. You have to recycle certain contents, just like Summit County. And we tested some just beverage recycling. Usually at construction sites, trade partners, staff members just kind of generate aluminum cans and plastic bottles and food wrappers. There's not a lot of other recyclables that might come from your team, maybe some office paper, right? It doesn't make sense to try to capture all recycling. Maybe it just makes sense to capture those empty beverage containers from job sites. So we did this at Alta Verde. We had trash and recycling next to each other. And this is just to capture materials inside. This is more of a pilot. We didn't recycle anything, but it worked. It also worked in Steamboat to try to get people to encourage and use these with proper labeling and disposal. So just have no basura, and then just have pictures of what can be thrown in here. That's it. And it's just beverage containers, not even office paper. If the paper goes in there, that's cool. Really, it was just a focus on what staff and trades are kind of generating. Developing, right? Isn't that beautiful? I think it's beautiful. I think that might be a coffee cup, but for the most part, it's clean material. Having this on site right next to it or sharing it with your trade partners, right? You're getting into that planning. You're letting people know that this is what my job site's doing. We're trying to do waste diversion. You have to share that with people. So speaking of planning, how hard can it be? It can be pretty challenging, right? So you might have language barriers, education, timing, trade, staff, collection containers. All of these variables come into play when you're trying to do waste diversion at a job site. Some opportunities, there's quite a few bullet points. This is where and this comes into materials management planning. If you're doing new construction or a demo, know your materials. Begin to write down as you're like, oh my God, I got the proposal happened, yes. Immediately start thinking what's gonna happen, who's coming on your site, what trades is going to generate what? So, I mean, you got gypsum drywall, but that might just show up on pallets, right, without any packaging, and it might just be on a truck and the truck leaves. So know your materials, know your trades, know what they're going to generate, right? HVAC, right? Know your region, know where your materials are going. We know they're going to go to the scrap, okay? Know your disposal cost. So again, if you're wondering what the scrap charges, you can go to the website, work with your haulers on some things. Just because your roll-off delivery might be X amount, that might not mean a dumpster or 2 to 8 yard dumpster might be that same amount, right? It might be different. The trucking hauling fee might be different because of weight, Maybe you use a 96 gallon container and you have a truck and you're like, I can go pick it up myself. Great, awesome. So get creative. Know your hauling company and learn your site driver. Especially if you see the same one over and over again. Review your invoices, and if there's any contamination reporting, ask about it. Usually on your invoices, you might see a contamination charge. So again, going to a construction waste management plan. This is Lakewood. Lakewood and Fort Collins kind of use the same one. So it asks for, just some job site information, and then you track your materials essentially. So this is where planning comes into play. If you are if you decide to go build down in Denver, right? If you're going to be forced to do this down there, especially city and county of Denver. So this is an example. This is what we did with Breckenridge. So we tried to apply some of the things, right? So concrete, we had 386, 480 pounds, 13 hauls, and went to peak materials. Trash, 140, 17 hauls, and went to the scrap, right? So this means we tracked things during the whole project, and that's, it is a little bit of extra work, but you might in the end see you're going to be saving some money if you have not been doing this before. So here's a planning journey with what we did with a new construction site. All we could do was cardboard. We didn't have dimensional lumber access at the time, so we focused on what we could do. This is with Denuve. I think it was wintergreen. Observed landfill materials, and then all we could do was just cardboard. That's all, and this is where we did the 4 roll-offs of cardboard from 4,000 pounds of it. Right? So our signage, they got lucky with a gable top, right? So this is great for cardboard if you're worried about illegal dumping. You can't just throw your couch in this dumpster, can you? Kind of hard. You have to slide open these doors, or if you can access the back, cool. But the goal was to use these doors. That's why the labeling is on these doors. Before you throw any sort of material in this dumpster, you're forced to look at what it actually says you can do. It's in English, it's in Spanish, right? It's legible. It's not pretty. It's not like with a marketing department or anything like that. We created recycling guidelines. I wish I could blow this up. But Jim, so let's say you have no space. You want to do cardboard. We had space inside. We actually had a corner to where we had broken down cardboard, and that's where we had a staging area. And it was just understood this is the staging area for cardboard. It can be a little hard to manage. We had something in place for it though. So that's like an option. You're just like, I want to do this. And again, if you have a truck, you can haul it yourself, right, to one of the drop sites, obviously the scrap, So that is an option for cardboard. It's easier to break down and kind of just keep in a corner. Kind of create some guidelines, right? This is all broken down cardboard, right? And then if you get a gable top, you get a couple of extra yards to throw some materials in. So this is the site. Trash dumpster. Over here are buildings. So we have the trash dumpster closest to the building. Farther away to where it's harder to throw your trash in is the recycle dumpster, gable top, okay? Cardboard. This was a staging area. We did that. We have site workers utilizing the dumpster up top, right? I think that one is just using hand. We've also used brute containers. So this is just kind of the process at a job site. So from here, this is what happens at the scrap. If you're curious, if you have never ever seen this before, right? Materials go in, we're at the disposal facility, they're coming out. Cool. We have a happy driver on the right. And so from there, this material gets pushed to the baler over here, and then it gets turned into pretty cardboard bales, and then it gets sent to our processor that Bill was talking about. Right on time. Wow. We just got through 120 slides together. Questions, comments, discussions?